Welcome back to Lower Keys Living, everybody. I've got the boat all rigged and ready to go. You can see the gear that I'm running today up on the left side. I'm not going to bother going through all that, but my plan was to compare my the Billy Bates, the mahi slayers, the tuna slayers, those cone-shaped feather rigs that you can see up top there, with the blue chugger lures from CNH, the round cone top lures right that you can see right there. Wanted to compare the two, just see how they did side by side catching. Had nice calm waters, perfect trolling conditions. So I really want to do a side by side comparison, see which was catching more, if there was a difference at all. So that was the game plan, plus running some deep diving lures out there just looking for some bigger fish. Perfect trolling conditions today. Nice calm weather, just enough chop on the surface action to hide our lures. So I was really pleased. Was looking forward to this. Weren't very many solid weed lines. A lot of really broken weed lines without really solid patches in them. But it was looking good, looking really promising today. I got out early. I was out trolling by about 7:30 in the morning, headed on out, and gosh, only saw one other boat that was out there by that time. So I did come across this in part of that broken weed line. This looks like it was a makeshift raft, and you can see the stuff that was on there actually slowed down. Took some pictures of it and really gave it a close inspection. But there were 6 life jackets, the life ring, and the bucket was sealed. It looked like buoyancy. You could tell they were all lashed on tightly, and there were some loose ropes dangling. So it looked like there was a full raft frame at some point on this. And I could tell there was virtually no growth on this whatsoever. So this had not been in the water long. There were 2 ceramic jugs dangling that I'm guessing were for water for the trip on here. But really, it takes a lot if this is what you're willing to cross over from Cuba. And again, the writing on that ring was in Spanish, so that's why I'm guessing this was from Cuba. Sad to say, it had made it through the Gulf Stream, but it was a sad thing to see out there. Um, Got back onto the trolling, and I was trolling my normal 7.5 knots along this broken weed line, and I kept getting Almaco jacks on that. And I actually gave up on the chuggers because it kept catching weeds constantly, which again, I've said before in other videos. That's why I run those cone shaped lures. That's what I'm always looking for. They tend to shed weeds a whole lot better, especially when it's a broken weed line. There's weeds scattered. It's not a clean, solid weed line. If you're trying to get alongside it. But again, trolling at 7.5 knots, I kept getting Almaco jacks one after the other. So I finally made the decision that after this last one, I was going to speed my trolling back up. But again, this was probably the 4th or 5th little jack that I got. One of the drawbacks of these pink feather baits is they love these pink feather lures. So anyway, decided to speed up because that tends to get rid of the Almaco jacks. And I also moved, instead of running right along that broken weed line, I moved about 50, 70 yards off that weed line. And it didn't take me long. I saw this big weed patch. It was like a quarter-mile off that weed line. This is like one of the few big freestanding weed patches I saw. So you can see I'm running faster, and I pass this. And it was almost instantly, once my lures passed that, I got hit hard. So this is about 2 minutes into the fight because I actually had to remount the camera. I'd taken the camera down. I only brought one camera on this trip, so I pulled the camera down to film that weed patch as I was going by. And before I had a chance to mount it back up, I got hit. So I had to slow the boat down. I was letting that reel run for a few minutes as I mounted the camera back up so I could get this film. And I really did not know what I had on here. It spun some line off there again while I was mounting the camera. It was running out. And I left the volume on so you could hear what's going on the boat here throughout this whole thing. But I was not thinking mahi because it never jumped once. It was going down deep, and it was pulling really hard. It was a good fight. Really enjoyed this one, and from the start of this clip till I brought it on was about a little more than 7 minutes. And again, I had probably about a minute and a half of that peeling line off as I was mounting the camera. Here it had swam all the way to the other side of the boat, and right now I've just got the boat in neutral. because I could tell this is a good fish and it was swimming hard. Um, and it was going to take a bit of work. So, but again, it swam totally off to the opposite side of the boat. I got it neutral, but I only had one other line in, so I figured I could keep working this fish and avoid getting tangled up on the line. Actually became a little harder than I anticipated, just moving rods around and having to feed this up and over the outrigger here, as you'll see in a second. But this fish was deep. So again, I wasn't thinking mahi at this stage. I was thinking like a small to medium sized wahoo. I knew it wasn't going to be a super big wahoo because it stopped peeling off a ton of line after the initial hit. But again, I was thinking wahoo because it was down deep. Typically, mahi are up on the surface and jumping. Bigger ones, they'll die, but they usually come back to the surface to get a couple of good jumps out of them off of every fight. And this was a solid fighting pool. Uh, Here from this point, I'm getting a little concerned because now it's going back towards the other side of the boat and still down deep. And at one point, it ends up, you can see it's almost 180 degrees behind me back on the boat. But I realized I couldn't walk around the boat without the line getting stuck on the props. So I kept working this, trying to pull it back from underneath the boat. And I got to a point where now I'm worried about the line dragging on the bottom of the boat. And here, right now, you can see I'm going to put the boat back in gear and try and spin the boat around a little bit to get the fish back on the same side of the boat that I'm working in. But I actually ended up deciding not to go that route because now I'm worried about it cutting the lines on the props because I wasn't sure which way this fish was going to go. So ended up shutting the engines back off and eventually decided I need to raise the engines up out of the water. And you'll be able to hear those engines lifting here in a moment when I go to do that. And you'll see I eventually walk around and I realize, man, I'm gonna have to fish this pole underneath get the line underneath, out from underneath the engines and try and free this up because now I'm really worried about whatever I have on cutting the line off on the engines. So again, at this stage, I'm still curious as to what I've got on here. It's been down deep, hasn't come up at all. But you can see right now I'm opening the stern swim platform door because I'm realizing I have to get out and try and fish this underneath the boat engines. So really working, trying to figure out what's going on here. I eventually just shut the engines off and realizing I'm going to have to raise these engines up out of the water to get the line out from behind the engines. Really didn't want the line getting cut off on the skegs at the bottom of the engines or getting cut off by the props. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to work this fish to get it to dive down and come back to this side of the boat. But you can see here I'm really reaching, trying to stick that pole down and get it out from underneath and behind the engines, looping it up and over. Took quite a bit of work here on that. But this is, again, really one of the reasons why I love coming offshore and fishing for the bigger game fish. I enjoy fishing for yellowtail and refishing and the action that provides, but I love getting a challenge like this where it's making me work and kind of think through all the steps I need to do to safely land this fish. And I apologize, did not shift the angle of the camera around very often during this. As you can tell, I was really busy trying to keep this fish on. But at this stage, I am working that line out from underneath the engine, around the engines, and finally get the fish to the other side of the boat here. And cranking it up, and now by this time I've seen the color on it, and I actually do have a mahi out here, so I'm bringing this up. Finally tired this thing out after probably good 9 minutes of time on this, which is quite a bit of time for a mahi. But yeah, just a beautiful fighting fish, and it's still fighting right up to the last minute here, but got it on board. This is just one of those beautiful blue colored mahis. Love these. You can see that was a bit of work. This one ended up measuring 36 inches from the nose to the fork in the tail. So just a nice size mahi, but an incredible fight even for this size fish. It was a fight I would expect out of a mahi, maybe 50% bigger than this one. But yeah, she was healthy. She had a lot of energy and was fighting like mad. And of course, they bleed like mad, made a mess out of my shirt. But there you go. Again, nice size mahi. That was in the bucket. So I actually rigged back up past that same spot a couple more times, got a few more decent mahi, nothing close to that size and nothing that fought like that. Both were easy to crank back on board. And then went in, trolled over some of the wrecks in a little bit closer. Didn't pick anything up off of those, but still a great day on the water. Got the mahi that I was looking for. And again, you can see there's that pink feathered billy bait. And this is just another example why I swear by these when I'm out trolling. Um, so you'll hear the engines. I got to get the engines back down on the water, get this boat started back up, and get back on my way. But man, I was super pleased with that fight and the effort and the technical difficulties this fish posed on me. So I always like putting the puzzle pieces together. Love how it turns out when you get a good fish like that on board. Um, so that was it. Getting it back in, start trolling again. Like I said, ended up trolling a few other spots, got a few more fish on board, but nothing that was really worth putting on film for you guys. Here I am headed back into the dock across Cudjoe Bay, heading back in. Just enjoyed a beautiful morning out. I was out for about 3.5, 4 hours total time today. Left the dock at about 6:15, 6:30, so still got plenty of daytime left. So getting the boat back in down in the canal, just as always, we've got a really thin canal. We're only 35 feet wide, so takes a bit of skill, a little bit of practice, but spinning this boat around in this narrow canal to dock it up. But get this one docked up, back on, got the fish cleaned up and ready for dinner. Got some in the freezer, so super happy with the day. The next couple of weeks, I'm not sure if when I'm going to get out again on the water because unfortunately later on this afternoon, I actually took a twist and wrenched my knee, and I think I tore my ACL. Going in to see the orthopedic surgeon tomorrow, take a look at it. I've done it on the other knee, but my knee is a mess right now and not able to get on the boat today, which is disappointing because, man, it was a spectacular day today. But I am planning on catching up on a lot of informational videos about boat setup, lure setup, rigging on my reels, and some reel maintenance. So I've got some other videos that I'm finally get a chance to sit still and work on. But thanks for watching. We will see you next week on Lower Keys Living, and good luck out there fishing.